I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently. Whether you feel stuck in survival, navigating a change, or seeking more for your life, may this podcast be your weekly nudge to take a risk to build a life that is uniquely bold, authentic, and in alignment with your deepest values. After a decade of coaching individuals from corporate leaders to creative artists to multi-million-dollar CEOs, I'm convinced we are far closer than we realize to what we deeply desire, and it's a willingness to do differently that can change everything. If you've been craving an adventure or just a change of scenery, or find yourself in the midst of navigating something hard and need some fresh perspective, I've got just the thing for you today. Get ready to take a journey without packing any bags. Join me and my former client, Will Baumgardner, as he gives us a window into his 5-month trek on the Appalachian Trail. May his footsteps and life lessons inspire yours. May his tenacity for hard things help you dig deeper for the sake of something greater. May his spirit of adventure call to yours. He reminded me, and may it remind you, to embrace the terrain of our lives with grace and gusto. Hey, Will, welcome back to Differently.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you back. So Will has taken a very unique journey since the last time he was here. And we have this saying in our house. My husband used to always say, like, you never come back from a trip the same. And we find it so true. Like anytime we go on a vacation or we like anything, your perspective is shifted, or things happen. You sometimes come back differently more than others, but Will has taken a really, really unique journey. And I talked to him a little bit about it, and I was so excited to have him come on the podcast to really share his journey with you. And I'm going to be learning a lot more about it, I know, because our conversation was kind of brief. So welcome back. And if you didn't hear Will's first episode on the show, you can go back. I don't know the date, but it's been quite a while. But it was titled "Life is an Adventure, Go All In." And I'm like, Will, that's so perfect.
I love it.
You're living true to, what you're up to. I love it. So yeah, say hello and just give people a sense of, kind of who you are in case they haven't met you before.
Absolutely. So good to be back, and so honored that you thought to have me on to talk about this adventure. And as you were introing, I was thinking back to when we first talked on the podcast, and there was one big life change, and since I've had another, and still navigating that space, living in a little bit of the unknown, so to speak, but had this opportunity to listen and kind of heed a call, if you will, to go out into the woods for a while. And such an amazing journey. I truly believe, like you said, any trip, it helps you shift your perspective. It helps you step outside of that routine that can be so beneficial in some areas of life, but also can maybe hold you back from viewing things differently. And certainly this journey allowed that perspective, and so excited to come back and experience life with this different lens as I move forward.
Yeah. And so professionally, just to give people a picture of kind of what you do, you've done a lot of things, but give them a sense of what you do, your coaching and all your magic.
All the magic. Sure. So really excited at the current moment, kind of in this reinventing phase since I have come back from the hike and the trail. But prior to that, really developed an expertise in finance and operations and kind of blending those together for growth stage companies or companies that needed some coaching. So started my career with Zappos in an analyst role, and then that grew into where I got to spend about a decade of my life working with a company that I helped build called Venture First. So there really got to, I was the first person that the CEO hired. And as the company grew, I started sitting in the seat of all of these new roles that we needed to fill until we found somebody more qualified to sit in that seat. So really ended up serving as chief of staff and COO in that capacity of really owning all the different internal operations and processes to help grow the company. When I left there, transitioned that into a consulting business where I sat in that COO seat for, again, some growth stage companies that were looking to grow quickly. And throughout that time, have spent time also as a swim coach, working with youth, and have recently come back into that world. So helping a dear friend of mine grow her swim school, sitting in both that kind of coaching her as an operator, as a business owner, that is amazing at teaching kids how to swim, but needs some of that help on how to grow a company, how to scale, how to put processes in place, and also working on coaching not only some kids, but then also experimenting with coaching some individuals as well.
Awesome. Love that. That's kind of I feel like that's such a perfect place for you to be, like on both those places. Because you're a natural coach, and you're also so effective and powerful on the business side of things. So I can't wait to see what's next for you. Okay, so tell us about the trail, and I want to ask a question about what really set you on that journey, but also paint a picture of what the Appalachian Trail is so people have a sense of that. And you pick the order.
Sure. So first we'll talk about the trail. So the Appalachian Trail, there are 3 kind of long trails that are in the U.S., all over 2,000 miles. So the Appalachian Trail is kind of the OG trail, and it stretches from Springer Mountain in Georgia all the way up to Mount Katahdin in Maine. So hikers can go 2 different ways. They can either hike northbound from Georgia to Maine, which is about 90% of the people that start northbound, or you can go southbound, starting in Maine and hiking to Georgia, which about 10% or so of folks do. And naturally, I chose that route because that's who I am as a person, but also timing. So the distance changes kind of every year, but last year in 2023, the official distance was 2,198.4 miles. And wow. It's incredible. It's this trail that follows the Appalachian Mountains through, I think it's 13 different states. It's the equivalent of running 86 marathons. And I believe the stat, I can't Google it right now, is it's either 17 or 18 times you summit the elevation gain of Everest over the course of the trail. So,
wow.
It's a beast. It is a
nut.
beast. I am a nut.
That's what I love about you.
Yeah. But it has this history, this lore of, it's also a very social trail. There's a huge community of folks that come out to support hikers on their journey. And only about 25% of people that start the trail end up hiking the whole thing. So it's a beast. And it came to me. So why the AT? How did this come into my life? if you ever get the opportunity to hike the AT or section it or day hike it, you will meet people that have wanted to hike this trail their entire life. There's a lot of recent college grads are a big percentage of the folks that hike it, as well as retirees. That probably makes up 75% of the people that are out there. And most folks have this calling, this desire. They've been around it forever. They love it. They've read about it. They know the history of it. They can tell you way more facts than I can. I was not one of those people. The trail just kind of popped into my ethos through two different acquaintances that I had. And it came to me at a point in life when I just couldn't say no to it. So it takes most folks, the average is 6 months to hike the whole distance. And I was going through a divorce in early 2023, as well as the consulting client that I was working with. It was just the right time to wind down that client. They had hired some other folks. They were bringing on somebody to do a lot of the administrative stuff that I was doing, sitting in that COO seat, which made the most sense for the business. So here I was, I'm recently divorced, no job. We were selling the house, so no mortgage, no bills, no responsibilities, trying to figure out where to go next. And just this little voice, little nudge was pushing the AT. And so I talked to two friends that had thru hiked it, and both of them were enthusiastically, yes, go do this thing. You can't ignore it. And so I started researching. I was pretty athletic person to begin with, but not a lot of backpacking experience. Certainly have never had camped alone in the woods, and just started doing some research, started buying some gear. And in June 21st, on the summer solstice, set off southbound from Maine.
All by yourself?
Started all by myself. Yeah. So there's definitely, like I said, there's a community of folks around the trail to support you. You end up meeting hikers along the way that kind of form a tramily, if you will, your little trail family. And ended up meeting two folks 10 days in, and we ended up finishing together 5 months later. So there were, at one point, there was a group about 10 of us in our tramily, certainly through the first quarter or so, that we grouped up and we'd hang out together. We would go off trail sometimes and, get an Airbnb to celebrate those big milestones, 500 miles in, and recover. But ended up meeting the two people that I finished with day 10, and plus or minus some days, we pretty much stuck together the whole time.
Wow. 5 months. That's a long time.
5 months.
A long time.
Living out of a backpack.
Wow. So you've done some pretty adventurous things before. I know you've done marathons, right?
I have.
Or races.
Yeah.
Share a little, because you also did a big summit of some kind. I can't remember where.
Did, yeah. So I love hard things. I love doing hard things. I love coaching people through hard things because I feel like that's where growth happens. And that's where life happens. I think it's in the gritty, and when it gets hard, you find out who you are. I probably my parents would love me to do less hard things. But I've kind of got addicted with, did a marathon, have done a couple of those. That turned into doing a full Disney dopey challenge weekend where you run a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and then a full marathon, all within a 4-day span, like back to back to back. That was fun. Marathons turned into triathlons. I've always been a swimmer, so naturally kind of gravitated to that. Have completed a full Ironman triathlon, lots of halves. And then in 2019, great timing, got the opportunity with a couple of friends and John, the CEO from the company I worked with for 10 years, went over to Africa and got to summit Mount Kilimanjaro, which was an awesome experience. And had done and completed like a 6-day journey on a trail out in California, through kind of sponsored, but that was maybe a little intro into backpacking. But yeah, I've always loved hard things and tons of other hard things besides just physical hard things. But
it inspires me so much. Like I've always had that inside of me too. Like I went skydiving kind of for that reason. Like not that I wanted to skydive, but I wanted to be on the other side of that experience. Like I wanted to have done it. I wanted to, and same thing with my son and I, his senior year, we hiked into the Grand Canyon, and camped down at the falls. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But nothing like what you have done. But I love this idea. I love that you say, I love hard things. Like, that's so good. And I mean, I coach people every day that they want to grow and they want to move in their life. But then when the hard thing hits, it's like, oh, but it's like, I'm constantly reminding them, this is it. Like, this is it. Like,
yes.
It's when we get uncomfortable that we grow. But then we resist it so much when we're
so much. It's so hard. Now, let's be clear. I didn't wake up every day on the trail loving what I was doing. But
we're going to get to that.
But no, yeah, it is. That's where you find out who you are as a person. I think is when you go through a hard thing and you, like you said, come out the other side of it. Like the growth that happens is so important. So important.
Yeah. So what did you, or maybe you didn't have expectations, but what did you hope for when you set out?
I hoped for that I would figure out the rest of my life and know exactly what I want to do, heal from, a failed marriage and come out the other side ready to go tackle life with this great plan that I could go execute. Didn't happen. And I think the big thing was, I expected the trail to solve all of life's problems.
Gosh, I think we can all relate to that. Like putting our hope in something that's going to solve everything. And this is a journey. This is
Absolutely.
a journey. So I want to come back to that because I do want to know kind of what you walked out on the other side. But what was the single greatest challenge of the whole thing?
So many challenges. I think
it does. Yeah.
No, I think the hardest is combating feelings of loneliness and like being true, like pretty independent, competent, happy person, truly being homesick. And, it's also one of the greatest things I learned is, I didn't miss my things. I missed my tribe. And I think having some nieces and nephews, they're seeing milestones through the phone screen versus in real life was a challenge. Like it made me homesick. But then I had this great tramily that I met that, you could rely on.
Tramily? Is that what you call it? Trail family?
Yeah, your trail family. but yeah, physically there were lots of hard challenges, but I think the biggest challenge was just, the woods can be isolating, and that isolation can become deafening. The silence can become deafening. So being able to fight through that and continue on.
I feel like I know there was like a specific moment. I don't know if you're willing to share it, but take us back to like that setting when
Yeah.
you sort of hit that wall.
Um, it was, so I know the exact place in my mind, like it is
Mm.
crystal clear. So there was a moment, I think, that I was ready to quit, that I was in the process of quitting. And so I was hiking, I had kind of entered this stretch where I was alone. So solo for about 20 days, and not solo. So there were other people on the trail, there were day hikers and folks that I met along the way, but no other southbound through hiker that I could, join up with or camp with. And um, got very isolated and lonely. And it was a moment. I was in New York, so I was about 1,000 miles in, and the day prior, I had walked across the Hudson River on a bridge, but like had seen the Hudson many times as a Kentucky boy traveling to New York. But that was the first time. It was just such this euphoria, this high of like, oh my gosh, I have walked here from Maine.
Wow. Wow.
Um, Sun was shining. It was towards the end of the day. It was glorious. Then that next day, just these intense feelings of loneliness, of what the hell am I doing in life? And was going into camp, and that whole day, it was also my sister-in-law's 40th birthday, and as a great human being, was expressing gratitude in our family group text of just who would have thought that 40 would look like this. I'm so thankful for a husband and children and a career that I love, right? And hit me a little different, just like, well, that's what I should be rare, right? Like, I should have all this, and I had all this. And so I was going into camp and just in a bad headspace, and put down my pack to go hike around to figure out where I wanted to set up my tent, and found a spot, came back to get my backpack, and then go to where the tent spot was. And this bear was standing right where I was going to set up my tent. Right. So,
I forgot about this.
so I'm like banging my hiking poles, throwing rocks, like trying to get the bear to move on. And, this bear was just like, what you got in that pack? You going to feed me anything for dinner? So at that moment, like I was like, well, I'm not dying out here. This is stupid. Like, I haven't figured out my life, blah, blah, and just, went,
Hit your wall.
just hit my wall. Yeah. Just went to a dark place.
Done.
Done. Ran like 4 miles into town with my pack. At the end of the day, got a hotel room. The next day, rented a car one way to Lexington, back to Kentucky. Like, I was done quitting. And I called my mom because I had not checked in, and so she answered the phone. It was like a little later in the day when it wasn't a normal time for me to be checking in or calling. It was like, "Are you okay?" And right away, right? Like, mom, spidey sense. And when she asked that was the first time that I said no. And well, yeah, just I was like, no, I'm not okay. Like, I don't know what I'm doing in life. I don't have anything figured out. I've hiked all these miles and I haven't figured the next step out. My marriage failed. I quit a career that I loved, like, and just laundry listed it. Right. But that was the first time that I allowed myself to say that I was not okay. And
Wow.
it was so freeing, and just just a moment that I will not forget. and so thankful for little mama wisdom, and just kind of let me go, and then was like, hey, I love you. Nothing makes me and your father more excited that you are coming home. Like, we want you home. But it sounds like this whole journey, you have been everywhere in your head except where your 2 feet are. I challenge you, one of her favorite sayings is be here now. And that was her challenge. And she was so right. And that moment, that, like, giving myself the permission to not be okay, was huge. And it changed my journey. I carried that burden physically and mentally for like over 1,000 miles. And I think I've talked about the trail. It broke me because I needed to be rebuilt. And it is such a great thing. It sounds so weird, right? Like, I'm so grateful to be broken. But we all are. And that moment, that leading up to that, I wasn't ready to hear that. I wasn't ready to accept that, until that moment, until I had been beaten down and worn out and had the time to, reflect a lot. And so thankful for that moment. And for Mom's words of wisdom.
That, I mean, as a mama boys, like, that just strikes me so much, because like when you said, like, nothing would make us happier than to have you come home and be safe, right? Like, as a mom, you want your kids to be happy and okay and safe. And what it took for her to say that, and knowing you, right? Like that. I mean, I know a slice of you. Your mama knows a lot more, but what perfect advice for you, and what a gift she gave you. And she had to set aside whatever it was of herself to, like, really stand for you in that moment. And that was so beautiful. And it completely changed the trajectory, I know, from that moment. And so
100%. I've never thought of it that way, Carla. You're absolutely right. What a gift that my mom gave. Well, because it was like, I didn't share the part that the bear made me come off the trail, because then they really would have probably flown and removed me from the trail. Right. But yeah, it was such a gift, such a gift. And so thankful, blessed, for incredible parents.
Yeah, so good. So what happened then?
Yeah. So I went off trail, and reached out. So we talk about trail magic, on the AT. Trail magic is a big thing, and that can come from a lot of forms, from strangers giving you a ride. I've now hitchhiked. That was something I had never done before. From people giving you a beer, at an intersection of the trail, or feeding you dinner. I had multiple folks that would, like, buy our dinner if we were in town at a restaurant, or drop off pizzas at a hotel, or we had somebody that insisted on buying one of our trailing members a new pair of shoes because his were busted out.
Wow.
Like, people are just kind, and that's trail magic. The real trail magic is the stuff that's not tangible, like my mom knowing exactly what to say, like Tiva, one of my the family members that I finished with, same day, mom hits me with, big old mama wisdom, and Tiva reaches out and sends a text of just, hey, I know that, we've gotten separated. Like, I loved hiking with you. I would love to
Mm.
hike with you again. I can't imagine what you're going through. I know that the solo time can be great, but it can also be, really hard. Like, if you want to meet up again, like, I'd love to hike with you. Here to talk with you if you ever need anybody. Like, such a great friend, and just offering that support. And so I was like, yep, I wanted to quit, but I'm back on the trail. Like, where are you? So if anybody is a purist out there on the AT, I did not hike the AT pure. I did skip some miles, but met up and with Tiva that next day. Our friend Crocstar, so our trail names, and he had a similar experience. He had lost his phone. His mom had come down to give him a phone. He texted like kind of a goodbye text, like, "Hey, I think I'm out. My mom's here. Like, I'm just going to ride back with her. It's been great knowing you guys." And I responded, I was like, "Totally get where you are. I was there yesterday. Decided to skip a couple miles to meet up with Tiva. We would love to hike with you again." And he was like, "Yep, that sounds good. I think I'll join you." So
Oh my gosh.
we had been
That's
separated
awesome.
for like 20 days. Trail magic happens,
Wow.
and we met up. And so 2 days later, I was walked into camp, and the three of us met for the first time back at camp, and my soul was happy. Like, that was, and I knew, like, okay, this is my crew. Like, these are my people that we're going to go to the end with. And then we stayed pretty much together for the rest of the trail.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think the big thing for me, what changed, how did it end, was the realization of, like, finding joy in the journey, and not being so focused on the destination. But weirdly, that joy first presented itself as sadness, and sitting with being sad, hiking sad, like grieving a little bit, if you will. But I think that the joy that I found through the journey was initially disguised as sadness, and I had to sit there and feel it and let it wash over me, and let my heart ache and cry. Oh, I cried so much on the trail. But through that is where the joy came, and I think that's just life as a whole, is being able to find joy and enjoyment in the journey, and just, destination's good. You want to be focused and moving towards something, but don't let it consume you, because it won't be fun.
It's so true. It's like, gosh, so many thoughts as you say that, but we want the joy, but in order to have the joy, like, if we're suppressing all the other feelings, it also suppresses our joy, right? And I had a cup of tea the other night, and on the little tea bag, I looked down and it says, without the darkness, we don't know the light, right? And the other thought I had was a client who recently just shared this statement of let your feelings finish. And I've really been carrying that with me, because I've not always been good at that. Somebody who, I think you share this too, is like an achiever type and tends to be really positive. it's so comfortable for me to stay in the positive and sometimes not so comfortable to feel all the feelings. And as we just left our 25-year-old home, I carried that, let your feelings finish. And I just, every time I felt the tears bubble up, when normally I'd kind of like just be like cry a little bit and then sort of move on, I
Mm-hmm.
just really let them finish. And it sounds like that's what you did. Like you just let some of those feelings finish.
Such a great saying, like, and absolutely. I think, you know, coming out of the trail and back into this, quote unquote real world, um, there is so much, I honestly want to say toxic positivity. And
Mm.
I feel it a lot in looking at like social media and what's being presented to you, and almost this drive of just not feeling, not letting the sadness, the grief, the whatever uncomfortable, hard emotion that it is for you, um, not giving it space in this desire to be positive and to be this best version of yourself all the time. And that's just not it is possible to be the best version of yourself all the time, but sometimes that best version of yourself needs to feel those hard feelings and
Uh,
sit with them and let them make you uncomfortable, because then you get to
yes.
feel it.
Wow.
And
Let them make you uncomfortable. I
mm,
think that's it. It's like a willingness to sit in the discomfort and know it's not going to kill you.
100%. I think you said it best, right? It's not going to kill you. I think it's so important to feel it, let the feelings finish. And I, absolutely, I'm a huge believer of mindset and, gratitude and all of the things that kind of roll into the positivity. Um, but you can't ignore the hard stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, that's hard. It's really uncomfortable to feel sad, at least for me. It was so uncomfortable, very comfortable feeling pain, physically, like, and grinding through it. But that was that was a that was a hard lesson learned. Was, yeah, feel the uncomfortable stuff. That's a hard thing. Let the feeling finish. I love that.
It's in just in the work I do in coaching, it's like I think it's so normal for people to feel like they're going to eventually get to this point where they've mastered their mind so much, or they're just going to have it all handled. And I have to really remind people all the time, this is the work. Like, this is the work. It's not that you're going to have it all handled. I mean, yes, we can have tools and things that sort of help us walk through it, right? But I think what you said is like just this eye on the destination always, right? When really everything's right here. So I want to go back to what your mom said about being on the trail, 2 feet on the trail. What started to shift there? Like,
Mm.
just actually being in the experience.
Oh,
Because this I have to remind myself every day, be in the minute, be in this minute right now.
it was almost it was two different trails. It really was.
Wow.
Pre and post that moment. And the part before was beautiful. Don't go. There's so much fun moments and joy and beautiful scenery, and that was all of New England. Oh my gosh, strikingly gorgeous. Um, but I was constantly focused, you know, as I would hike along on, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I could go, okay, I could continue consulting. I could go do life coaching. I could I could be a swim coach. I could maybe help build the swim team. Like all these, I was trying to figure out professionally, what am I going to do? Right. Mind constantly going.
Going.
Okay. No longer married. Like, okay, at some point, oh God, I'm going to have to start dating. What's that going to look like? How am I going to do that? Am I comfortable with online dating? Constantly going, right? And I never let the mind stop, right? I was constantly planning, figuring out where I was going to camp, trying to keep the tramily together. And after that moment, I started doing things like sitting for lunch and napping in the sun after I ate lunch for an hour because it felt great.
Wow.
Or getting to the top of a viewpoint, and instead of being so focused on getting to camp at a certain time to make a certain distance, like, yes, that was still there, but like, enjoy the view. Take 10 deep breaths and just marvel at what is in front of you. There was a moment that I think beforehand it wouldn't have happened. And I was at there's a memorial on the trail for a fallen soldier. And it was, I don't know, just, it's just one of those moments where I felt called to sit and reflect on a life and what do I want my tribe to feel like, if I'm gone, and there, I was sitting there and I was it turned into like a longer moment. And I was thinking of like, man, it's, sounds really corny, but I was like, it's almost like, and then here I am pumping myself up in my head because I'm also that person, but it's like, hey, I'm like a phoenix, like I'm rising from the ashes on this trail. I had to get broken. I had to burn down to like rise again.
Build up.
And as my mind is thinking phoenix, a leaf falls, hits me in the lap, and it is in the shape of a phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Like, slow down, enjoy the moments, right? And if I wouldn't have it was just a calling, a nudge of, oh, let's just like sit down for a second and reflect on this. And that was after, my mom said what she said, and I was in the second half, but it's one of those moments I was like, this leaf looks like a phoenix. And it fell in my lap as the time that I was thinking about that. And it just was a reaffirming of like, you're on the right path, keep going. And moments like that just made the second half so much better. Cause I was hiking more miles. Actually, we were doing, first half, like 13 to 15 miles a day. The second half, we were bumping up closer to 20 on a daily basis. I was hiking more miles, but I was enjoying more memories. And it was just such a different perspective.
Wow. So much in that. I just got to let it
right
mist over me. Yeah, so much. I think it's so amazing what you said that it was two different trails, because I think that's what we have access to every day. I know I can come into my office and I can have a work day where I'm just in my head and there's some urgency and, a good amount of stress to just get everything done I need to get done. Or I can come up here and I can say a prayer and I can just be super present and I can trust in my inner guidance to focus on what I need to focus on today and take breaks throughout the day. And I don't get any less done. I feel entirely different. And they're two completely different experiences of the exact same thing.
100%. And I think for me, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not so much religious at the moment, but to me, it's humbling yourself to a higher power and understanding the trail. I'm laughing because the trail also helps you realize that a lot of the stuff that you think matters doesn't matter. Like, oh, how is this company going to survive if I'm not doing what I'm doing? Guess what? They survive just fine. How is this going to, like, I mean, and it doesn't matter. And I think being humble enough to realize that, like, and to let that sink in and just know that, you're where you need to be, and just listen to that. I think was so impactful from the trail.
Amazing. So, what was the hardest thing about coming back?
The pace of this life that we live is so accelerated.
Wow.
So accelerated. What are we doing with all this extra time? Like all of these, you can order your groceries online and they can be delivered. And you can
anything online and have it delivered.
Anything, right? Like, and all of these time-saving services and stuff that's out there, and it's like, what are we doing with all this extra time? And I think the pace of this life is so fast, and many times that's great. Like, it's fun, I enjoy it, right? But there's other times where I've had to really be mindful and think, is this good for me? Am I falling into this accelerated pace of life because it's making the hard thing easier? Sometimes that's good. Sometimes you just need to do the hard thing. And I think that's been the biggest difference. Is again, the pace just is so fast. Like, I went from the trail finished actually 4 months ago today, on top of Springer Mountain in Georgia, to the Atlanta airport in less than 24 hours to fly home. And so much respect for service men and women that actually got shot at, that were gone, that were deployed, because even my little 5-month journey, and I was in a town every day, or not every day, every 5 days or so, just that culture shift from trail to the airport was jarring. I mean, I'm a pretty strong person.
Resilient guy. Yeah.
Jarring. And it's just a matter of, it's a different lens. You talked about travel early on, and you come back differently. It's now looking at things. Is this good for me? Or is it letting me avoid the hard thing?
Wow. Well, I think I only have one more question. And I mean, I have more than that probably, but for the sake of our time, because I don't want to, I don't think this is all, it's not a buttoned up kind of thing and a before and after kind of thing. Like, I get that you're still in process and this is still a journey. But what I'm curious about is like you mentioned that question, right? Like, is this good for me? But what questions are you sitting with now that are going to probably guide whatever is next?
The biggest question is where do I want to spend my time? How can where can I do the most good? And I think the trail was great in a sense. I was also running away from a hard thing, if you will, of having to reinvent a life post career shift, post divorce, post selling a home. So now my hard thing is building that life again. And so I think the biggest question is, how do I want to spend my time? Because that's the one thing we all have a limited supply of. And where I think still trying to listen to those nudges, and as I've gotten back and working with a new client and talking to friends, and but where am I being called to spend my time, and being brave enough to answer that honestly.
It's so good. I can feel just your whole experience behind all of that. Really kind of, you have a new lens, right? That you're looking through to answer those questions. And
totally a different lens and different perspective for sure. And I think some of the periphery noise has been eliminated, I now know I don't need a lot. I lived for 5 months out of a backpack. So there's things that have been eliminated, but it's just sharpening that focus on, where am I going to spend my time? Where can I make an impact? And best serve others with the gifts that I have been given.
So good. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to share before we close?
Nerd gummy clusters are the preferred fuel for long distance through hikes.
What in the nerd? So it's like the nerds, the candy?
Yes. So good.
I love that.
I don't know. That's just where my mind
That's
went.
Awesome. I love it. It's perfect.
So good. I wish I had a link.
Where do you... I wish I had a link. Maybe I'll find one and put it in the show notes.
You can get them at most gas stations, 7-Elevens, Circle K's, random backcountry. Awesome. Your only option for the next food for 3 days is convenience stores food. Yeah. No.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for taking us on a journey today. You're going to make me cry, but you did. You took me on a journey, and I know people listening too. And thank you for sharing yours. Thank you for being an amazing light. And I treasure you. I'm so grateful for that our paths have crossed, and that you could be here today to pass this along.
Thank you. It was, I have learned that it is a privilege to be able to share this journey. And it was, hopefully something out there made a connection with somebody where the road ahead just is a little bit easier. 'Cause that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So good. Have an amazing day, everybody. Thank you so much, Will.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, be sure to hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please help us spread the word and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.